Well, today I have a very special guest joining me. We have with us Dipam Secretary, Mr. Tuhin Kanta Pandey. Sir, thank you very much for joining us here on Mirror Now. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. We're talking about Budget 2022. The key highlight for everyone was the 35% rise in capital expenditure. And a lot will depend upon your department, sir. So you're very, very crucial for the estimates that have been given this year, 7.5 odd lakh crore that government is looking to spend. 65,000 crore is your disinvestment target for 2022-23. Could you tell us a little bit about what's in the pipeline, what can be expected?
See, right now we have the biggest thing is the LIC IPO. I think that's something which is a much awaited IPO, and I think it will have a large-scale participation from people at large, investors at large. I would say investors of all kinds, retail investors, policyholders, around the world, around the globe, investors. So that's what we are preparing for. Going forward, of course, we have other transactions in the pipeline like BEML and Shipping Corporation, which are the advanced stage. Now we will have something in the, towards the financial bidding stage, also BPCL. And then you have Pawan Hans, for example, the financial bids have come, and we will, go for opening of the bids soon. Then there will be something where the EOI has been issued, like, for example, HLL Life Care or PDIL. Then certain cases where EOI will be issued and soon. For example, IDBI Bank, we're expecting the EOI by the end of March. And we will have, for example, Nagarnar Steel Plant, from NMDC after demerger, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's like, different stages of the pipeline. Some are maturing, some are in the due diligence stage, some are EOI just been issued, and some where new announcements will be made. So this will be a continuous process as per the new PSC policy that was announced by FM last year.
But sir, I'll talk to you about LIC IPO in just a bit. But before that, if you look at the target from last year, this year target looks much lower. Is it because we do not have much to disinvest, or is it because we want to be more realistic this time?
So disinvestment is a market-related activity. It's not a one-time job that what we want to do. There has to be the takers from the other side. Then you have to culminate those transactions. And our experience has been, because for the last 20 years we haven't had privatization, and the first one was Air India, and the second one was quickly we did the NINL. Now Nilachal Ispat. Now what is actually required there is it requires at least about 9 to 12 months minimum, not to complete one transaction, because it's a management control. On the other hand, we have a minority stake sale transactions where we are diluting the stakes there. The third category is basically a listing transaction where like LIC IPO, etc., where we bring it. Now, if you are saying listing space, of course, LIC is the biggest institution that we are bringing. We could possibly next year we can bring in ECGC, National Streets Corporation, WAPCOS, but these are smaller sizes. Then dilution of stakes sales also now, last 6 years we have done 3.5 lakh crores. So we have the bandwidth above 51%, not much bandwidth is now left. So, and we are also to be mindful of interest of the small shareholders, the minority shareholders, the retail shareholders, and any excessive supply in a particular stock can also disrupt their, holding and so on. So I would say that because of we require a very nuanced strategy for disinvestment. So it's not like a hammer approach. You require a surgeon's knife. So it would really, that sort of approach, strategic change that we have done. It not to say that we are actually slowing down on privatization or disinvestment. It's like, we are entering into a more difficult phase of disinvestment, which will require more time. And we are also be very mindful of the PSU stocks and their pricing and so on, and the valuations, which should not adversely impact the people the investors who are investing in PSC stocks.
Okay. Clearly, you said that now you are entering a difficult phase, but I think I would like to say what you've completed. That was probably the most difficult one, Air India, because the government, I know, has been trying to, sell Air India for a very, very long time. You finally managed to do it. How difficult was this journey, and was 18,000 crore the right price, or will you call it, a distress sale, considering how much of taxpayers' money it was eating every year?
First of all, I'll say that this was a team effort. It is not an individual effort, or I would say not even an individual department's effort. Okay. We have a multi-layered process. Like, for example, in case of Air India, the Ministry of Civil Aviation was hand in hand working shoulder to shoulder with us. Similarly, the other departments like Department of Expenditure, Department of Economic Affairs, Public Enterprises, Legal Affairs, then we had Corporate Affairs. All of these departments are, collegial departments in our IMGs, the interministerial group. Then there's a core group of secretaries of disinvestment. Then Apex, we have an alternative mechanism of ministers. Now, all of this combined together only delivers a transaction. Because Dipam is only a nodal department, so to say. Of course, we provide the secretariat, and we, of course, help in, doing the transaction. But I wanted to put on record that this is the entire team that actually works out. Now, I think to your second question, I would say that this has been very much, our process is absolutely transparent, open, competitive bidding. And we have a system of reserve valuation, which also we do it after the financial bids have been logged in, so that we do not have any chance of any, price influencing the bid. So therefore, all these checks and balances have been kept in place, and our process have been very robustly tested, not only now and others. And as you know that, routinely we are legally challenged in by different stakeholders, sometimes in PIL, sometimes employees take us to the courts. And we have, in the light of the Balco judgment of Honorable Supreme Court, which the guidelines we totally follow. That's in fact a law of the land, so to say, on disinvestment. And we follow that process very, very meticulously. Now, obviously, in an Air India you are aware that government has put in more than a lakh of crore in terms of funds and guarantees only in 1 decade.
True.
So that's the kind of money, and still, despite having put that money, still we were actually incurring 20 crores a day as losses. And those losses have accumulated to more than 70,000 crore. The net worth became minus 35,000 crore. So certainly the business were really unsustainable. In the normal situation, in any private situation, the business would have been closed down. And that would have really disrupted. Employees' lives would have been shattered. Now, and connectivity and an organization which connects Indians to the world. So I think taking into all of these consideration, if you really see that it was an openly discovered price, and it has led to a situation where we don't have to really put it, and we have really opened the doors for the growth of the enterprise, as well as for the protection of the jobs of
it's
the
better than
employees.
shutting it down, but because why I
No,
asked
also
you,
for the growth of that employees. Not rather than the shutting, I would say that it will lead to the growth of the enterprise. On the contrary.
why specifically I had asked you that question, whether 18,000 crore was the fair price or not, because eventually, if you see, you just got about 2,700 odd crore rupees. Rest was the debt that Tata's.
No, that is a receipt, you would say. It is not really. If you really see what's the price you got, it's actually 18,000
Yes,
crore.
true.
Because otherwise, that much of debt, this is government guaranteed. We ought to have paid.
Yeah, you would have had
So
to
it's the
pay.
same thing.
Yes. True.
Money is fungible,
Yeah.
The point is that the hit we would have got if they would not have taken 15,300, government would have paid because it's government guaranteed. See, it was not something that the banks would have taken the hit.
So the sale will actually now save at least 20,000 odd crore that you were saying that you had to put into
So that's
Air
the
India.
consideration, in fact, yeah. But only the cash consideration is 2,700 crore. But it also brings it to an issue of accounting. Accounting terms, we will put in our coffer in consolidated fund only 2,700.
Yes.
Because the other one has not been touched, the consolidated fund. And that is how we have moderated our, the numbers in order to take care of these kind of peculiarities. Because normally, in the normal common parlance, you would understand I've got this money. But in accounting terms, I haven't got that money.
True.
So since the disinvestment number in the budget is an accounting number, so we have corrected that sort of distortions where we actually give a moderate number which we know that we are likely to achieve.
Was it like a sigh of relief for you when eventually it happened, Air India?
Of course, it was a sigh of relief for several people because,
Yes.
because you cannot have, I think, in my opinion, it must have been a sigh of relief also.
Was it the toughest for you?
For the employees and the flyers too.
Was it the toughest one for you, Air India?
Air India is certainly the toughest,
So far.
so far. But I would say that the LIC IPO also is a very big thing and it's a very complex thing as well.
When is it coming?
It's coming in March.
Okay, because not just like retail investors otherwise, even I think employees are very excited about LIC IPO. The country is really looking forward to. At what stage is it right now? And if it's coming in March, then its proceeds will be counted in the current financial year. It won't be part of the 65,000 odd crore that you are aiming for next year.
It will be part of this current year's budget.
And how much are you looking from that one? Any number?
You will come to know next week when we will file our DRHP.
Oh, next week only you're filing the DRHP. Okay. Sir, now I also want to understand from you, because I've been covering disinvestment for quite some time. When I started as a student, when I tried to understand what this department does, the sense was that the idea of disinvestment is to ensure people of this country own something in terms of shares in a public sector company. But of late, the sense that we are getting is that it's become an exercise to earn more revenue for the government. Has there been a change of this sort? Are you disinvesting or privatizing because you have to give revenue to the government?
No, I think the disinvestment policy of the government is enshrined in the new public sector policy. And what it says is that in the in the strategic sector, we will retain the bare minimum presence, and the rest we will try to privatize, or we will do the mergers, or we will even go to the closure if that is not sustainable. And in the non-strategic sector, we will privatize or close. This is a broad policy direction. Now, privatization is basically in order to encourage the enterprise to reach its potential, both in terms of jobs as well as in terms of growth. We do realize that in today's enterprises, they have to function in an extremely dynamic, technologically dynamic environment. If you do not actually change the technologies, if you don't respond to demands, change in demands, you will see the business will go away. I mean, you may heard of even some of the great private names, like for example Kodak and so on. You have example of even household names in the private sectors vanished in the market because they were unable to change at the right time. Now we have a situation where our enterprises have to face that sort of situation. They'll need flexibility. They will also need to raise capital. Government is not always in a position to put further capital for the growth of the enterprise because we have got multiple demands. And it is not possible from the same budget to actually go on meeting the demands of business enterprises. So now today's business has to do in an economy where all the kinds of opportunities are available, and private sector enterprises are capable of managing and investing and undertaking large-scale projects and manage also complex organizations. So there is, at this stage of the economy that we have, if we have reached a competitive stage in a particular sector, there is no need for the government to continue to remain in business. In that sense, that privatization will actually optimize the growth and enterprise potential and help it sustain in a competitive.
And that's why it's called as strategic sale, because...
Exactly. Strategic sale we say because whenever it's a technical term which you use, whenever you have a large chunk of share, either 50% or more, or even less, but with management control. When we pass on the management control, And there are detailed rules around it. Like if you have a listed company, then the SEBI will also say that the strategic partners, when it comes in, has to give an open offer to the minority shareholders so that they have also a chance to exit if they don't want that new person to get in.
Okay.
So it's a usual merger and acquisition or merger and M&A space that we work in this particular way. And all our things are also subject to the same laws.
So it's not just for getting revenue for the government to, fill that shortfall that disinvestment is happening. There is a reason behind disinvestment is happening.
Exactly. And then, of course, revenue, we will call it a capital receipts maybe, from the accounting terms. That will also come in. But as I said that, there are multifarious objectives.
So that is not the only objective
the receipts,
that's driving.
disinvestment receipts is only one of them.
Okay.
And we should not really, and the primary, I think, if you really say, because there are many times, there is an apprehension that actually privatization means job losses. On the contrary, if you really recall in the economic survey chapter, when this chapter on privatization and wealth creation, which was there last year, and they have compared some of those strategic sales which were done way back in 2003 and 4, and they've compared those companies, how those companies have grown in terms of several economic parameters, and they have performed excellently well. So therefore, and in fact, the jobs have only grown in those enterprises, not gone less. So there is an apprehension that privatization is equal to job losses, which is not true.
Because, the other charge that we hear a lot of times is that this government is selling, family silver, not really making any, because this was all made by the previous government and now all being sold, to earn money. These are the kind of allegations we get to hear from the political parties specifically.
No, if you really see, taxpayer money also goes in. If an enterprise has to be, artificially sustained through taxpayers' money, that's also taxpayer money has to bring in. So, there are alternative, there is an opportunity cost of funds.
Yes.
If you have a funds, if you need money to invest in a social sector or for farmers or health and education, which we want more and more fund to infrastructure. So, then I think we have to pull it out money from somewhere. So, or else collect from taxes. In any case, it's a money from taxpayers' money which will have to come in, because if the government comes in, it's the people's money which will come in, whether in sustaining that enterprise or in disinvesting the enterprise. That money is also, when it goes to Consolidated Fund of India, it needs to create, for example, you said 7.5 lakh crore. This is a very big, capex thing. The money has to come in.
Yes.
So if we do disinvestment receipts, that money will come in and get invested again in the economy. So it's not that, because clearly it's not even going in a revenue expenditure, it's going into a capital expenditure.
True. Last question, sir. Now, many are calling your target for the next financial year a bit conservative one. You say because the pipeline is a little difficult from what you've done in the past, that's why you've given this kind of a target. Is it like achievable, or you're hopeful that you might be able to just cross it also, like exceed it next year?
See, in terms of receipts, there is no parliamentary sanction which is required. When it requires expenditure, you actually require a demand for grants to be approved. For receipts, if you are able to do it, you can always receive it.
I'm hopeful you'll be able to meet that target.
No, that point I'm saying is that it is the market transactions are subject to markets, and they must be accomplished in order to receive the money. And there is no restriction on receipt of money. If you can receive X, you can also exceed X. But issue is that you are able to see what is the capacity of the system and what is the capacity of the market currently to handle what kind of transactions. So it's an estimate. Budget is also an estimate.
So you're hopeful you'll be able to achieve it or exceed it?
I think the whole task has been to go for a more of a realistic budgeting. If you really see, that is the effort of the government, whether in terms of expenditure, where all the off-market, entries have been wiped out. We have, transparently showing everything. The last year there was a big chunk of FCI's liabilities were cleared off, fertilizer companies' liabilities were, fully squared off. So, on the expenditure side, it's not postponing liability. Even in case of Air India, very transparently we have said that this is the money which has come from AIHL and has been used in this manner.
True.
So it's basically, I think we should really put out realistic numbers which we think that are possible to be achieved.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us and helping us understand your pipeline of disinvestment for the next year. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.